So who has ever written a contract before?
No.
Okay. So I've shown you guys in the past, and we've done a video on how to write an offer. And part of that was the Form 21, but we were kind of all encompassing. And so really, I want to make sure that everybody has a understanding of the Form 21 or the purchase and sale. So depending on the type of property that you're selling, there's different purchase and sales. This one is for a residential property, so a single family home. You have multifamily purchase and sales. You have condo purchase and sales. They're all very similar with some differences that pertain to that type of property. And so for all intents and purposes, the most common one you're going to use is either the Form 21, which is the single family home, or the Form 28, which would be a condo. And so we'll look at the Form 28 another time, but it's going to have all the same elements and then a few extras. So what I want to show you guys is, first off, kind of what's on it and what do we need to fill out and why do we need to. And so the first page is really kind of the outline of our offer. And we have to fill that out to have the, but then every form has got additional pages that has boilerplate. And so oftentimes you'll call me and you don't need to stop calling me and asking questions. That's what I did, but sometimes you're not going to get a hold of me. Rest assured, most of the answers to your questions are in here. They usually deal with things like, do the sellers have to leave something? What if there's a problem with the title? When do my buyers get the home? What's the computation of time? So all of that stuff in here, and we'll take a look at it a little bit. But really, I want to first make sure that you know how to fill out a contract. So when I first started in real estate, I didn't know we had fancy tools that would auto-populate. So I had to fill every form out by hand individually. Luckily for you guys, you don't have to do that. We are going to do that for this exercise, but you do not need to do that as there's templates already made for you. And a lot of the information will be put in automatically. The problem with putting things in automatically, though, is that we just skim it and we miss stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm guilty of that when I get going. So I really need to slow myself down and look at it. And there's not a lot to it. And so one of the things that's always going to be auto-populated is the date. But let's just write this up today. We'll put today's date in. Friday the 13th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, offer expiration time date. Do you guys know if you were to not put an offer, if you were just to put a day in, do you actually know when the offer would expire? Like
Yes.
if we were to say it's going to expire tomorrow, what time does that expire if we don't specify?
9 p.m.
Exactly. Now, if you forget that or you need to know that, they actually reference that on those the next 5 pages that have all the boilerplate that I talked about, and we'll get down to that. And so everything always ends at 9 p.m. in real estate and unless otherwise specified. You know, and so then we're going to put our buyer's information in. And so it gets on title correctly. We want to put it in. Are they a partnership? Are they married? Is it a single person? You know, when I just bought mine, I put an unmarried person. So the seller information usually will also auto-populate, but we want to double check and make sure that's all there. You know, sometimes the seller's information is not disclosed. So we could go to the county records and see who the seller is. We could call the agent, all of that, but we need to get that information in there. Again, it's going to have the legal description attached on most offers. Offers have to have the legal description. We get that in the supplements, but obviously the property address. Now, anything that we want to be left behind by the seller, and so it's kind of bizarre. When you read into the boilerplate in here, it talks about the appliances that are attached are they need to stay, but we also want to write it in here. And so case in point, about a year ago, the listing literally said all the appliances that stayed, and one of them was a refrigerator. It was marked on there. I can't believe I didn't do it, but I didn't check refrigerator on this line 5 right here. Lo and behold, my client moves into the home and there's no refrigerator. So guess what Joe got to do with his commission? I got to buy a refrigerator. Now, you know, truthfully, like the letter of the law, like they signed this contract and it's excluded, but I'm their guide and it's assumed that it's going to be there. And they're just, we're also they're just signing so quick. And so we really want to double check. Is the refrigerator staying? Is the washer and dryer staying? Because that was about $2,500 that I got to go spend on closing day, right? Right when I closed, I got to go buy a refrigerator. And it was also a pain because it was back ordered.
Oh, wow.
And you can't rely on the other agents to do our job. Professional courtesy, it would have been nice if she called and said you didn't check the refrigerator. Was that intentional? But she didn't, and she doesn't have to. It fell on my shoulders, and so I wanted to clean it up. So we want to check everything that is going to be stayed. Even if they say that that TV on the wall is staying, check it.
Wait, so did you check refrigerator and they didn't leave it?
I did not check it.
Oh, so they took it.
Yeah. And so what we write on, and the point of what Matt's story was, what we write here supersedes what's in the listing. The listing clearly spelled out that the refrigerator stayed. I even showed that to her. But the truth was I didn't have a leg to stand in because, they could have read it. They could have totally read it like, oh, that guy doesn't want our refrigerator. They didn't check it. Yeah. And so this is going to supersede whatever's in the MLS. Whatever the signed contract is what's going to take priority. Then we get down to the purchase price. And one of the things, so if we're just clicking on it, it'll autofill the purchase price, but sometimes we're offering more or we're offering less. So, let's say the house that we're looking at's been on the market for 17 days and at 675, and we do our comps and we don't want to spend more than 625. We write that number in. What's written on here is the price that we're offering. All right. Any questions so far, Chloe? Here, let's fill this out in your name. How about that?
Oh,
Chloe Kind.
Chloe Kind.
She's an unmarried person.
Unfortunately.
Buying it from Ashley Rodriguez. She's selling her this home. So we're gonna include the stove, the refrigerator, the security system. Now we don't want the washer, the dryer, the dishwasher.
No, I don't want the dishwasher. That's dirty.
All right. The reality is it's attached, so they're not going to remove it.
I'm kidding.
But I get that. There's some people like that. All right. And so Ashley's trying to sell her house for $700,000, but we're going to offer $659,000. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry.
And because it's been on the market for a while, and Ashley's really motivated because I called and talked to her agent, and we have a motivated seller. Okay, and so Earnest Money, the thing about Earnest Money, I don't know if you remember, so I'll just restate it, but it's going to be money that's going to be applied anyhow to the purchase. So I'm not scared of big Earnest Money as long as my clients understand the risk of it. And so let's say on this one, we're going to put, $15,000 because she's going to put 20% down anyways, and it's going to come in the form of a check. So you always want to check how it's going to get paid. I think, Ashley, you and Chris put check or wire, don't you?
Yeah.
Which you can. I actually think that's a good little deal there. So this is a new change. It used to always just be mandated 2 days after mutual acceptance. But we have to fill this date in. But let's say we forget. What happens? What do you think happens if we forget to put the date in?
2 days.
Well, then it will automatically go to 2 days.
Do you know that?
Well, I think it says it down below under Earnest Money.
Boom. Bonus points for you. And that's exactly it. Somewhere down here. So see right here, it'll tell you buyer shall deliver the earnest money by the delivery date listed in the specific term. Term 7, 2 days after mutual acceptance, if not filled in. And so if we're not filled in, it will automate to 2 days. So that's why it's really good to always look down here, because you'll often find the answers that you're looking for. And so again, if you don't put a date in there, it's going to default to 2 days. So we've got to let our clients know when we're making this offer that they've got to make arrangements with escrow, whether they're doing a check or a wire, within 2 business days. Again, that goes down to computation of time, which we'll get in. Now, here's really important thing. If there's one of the things that's probably the most important on this purchase and sale is to not forget to check the box of what happens if they don't fulfill their obligation. And so what you're always going to check is forfeiture of earnest money. Do you know why, Chloe? Do you know what this means?
Yeah, it means you don't get it back.
Yeah. And so basically we're saying that You as the buyer, Chloe, let's say you just get cold feet and don't want to buy this house, and you've got so much disposable cash. You're like, you know what? It's the day before closing, but I don't like the neighbor. I'm walking away. The only thing that the sellers can get from you is your earnest money. You forfeited the earnest money because you checked this box. Now, if you checked this box, then the sellers could sue you for all sorts of stuff.
Great.
So it's really important that we always make sure to check that box. And I will tell you, these little boxes are really easy to forget. And so this form, you always want to double check and make sure you've checked everything. Yeah, Ashley.
When it's non-refundable, I forgot which box you check
You would still check forfeiture of earnest money.
and just
But
waive
then
it.
then there's just another addendum that we attach. So,
That's right. Okay.
yeah. So what we got so far is we know who's buying the house and how they're taking title. We know what's being left. We're checking that refrigerator because we don't want to buy our refrigerator with our commission because we're so excited that we just got a commission. So we don't want to have to go buy our buyers a new refrigerator because
gosh,
we forgot to
Joe.
check the box. Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. And you got no one to blame in that moment but yourself, and you know it. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, I forgot that box. How did I do it? So what has happened is, so most sellers agents have a title company that they want you to use. The reason is they've already opened up title, so money's already spent there. They have a relationship with that closer usually, and so it puts ease on the brokers, the selling brokers mind. And so like we use Dharma because she really goes over and above for us, and so other people have closers they like to use. And so just to make, in the interest of not getting a counter offer or any changes, unless it's something weird and obscure, I always put the title company in which the agent has requested. Most of the time it'll be an agent remarks. And if not, you can just call in, that's another moment where we can communicate. Too much communication isn't even a thing that exists when it comes to putting these deals together. So I just call Ashley and say, hey, Ashley, you didn't mention a title company that you're using on this. Who do you have open with? Do you have a closer you like to use?
Yeah, I
Awesome.
like to use endpoint Dharma done.
Perfect. So there's another reason, and so she can go to her sellers and show these offers and show that, hey, they took the time to write this offer the way we asked them to. And so that's really important. All right. And now we get down to closing day. Oh, sorry. See how easy it is to almost skip something? Again, so we're going to close by our brokerage firm. That's who's going to hold the money. No,
Or-
it's not.
No, it's
We're
like
gonna
closing.
hold exactly closing agent. So the reason we do that is we don't have an account to put the money in. We cannot mix, and most brokerages don't. You cannot mix funds with company funds. So we always have it held by the closing agent. We never have the money. I used to pick up checks and deliver it, or have a courier come pick it up. I don't do that now. I just have them take it directly to escrow. The nice thing with Endpoint, you can actually do a direct transfer from your checking account into it. And so it's really easy to use. But yeah, we always want to check that it's going to be held by the closing agent. We never want our clients' money. So we've got that checked, but see how easy it is to skip a box. I've been preparing for this. I still almost skipped one of the most important boxes. So, and so now we got our title insurance, we got our closing agent in there. Now we've got to pick the closing date. And so let's go ahead and we'll just keep filling this out. Boom. All right, I think we're going to get you this house, Chloe. And so closing date, you're going to have worked that out with your clients. If it's a cash deal and closing and your closer, or you're going to talk to the lender, but typically it's, 21 to 30 days. So for today's purpose, we'll put, let's just put June 1st. And so again, most of this will auto-populate when we're going through the transaction desk, which if you want more help with that, that was another class, and I'm happy to help on one-on-one time too. So again, you're not going to have to fill everything out, but it's really good that we're doing this so we could see. Now, 99% of the time, you're going to take possession on closing. So let's say we're taking possession on closing, Chloe, and you really want in that house, you want it the second it closes, but Ashley's like, you know what? I want to my movers aren't here yet. So do you know when you actually take possession?
You take possession, so if the closing date's June 1st, it would be at 9 p.m.
Exactly. And if you forget that or don't know, now most agents, I would say the overwhelming majority are gonna the sellers are gonna be out the day before closing at least, and probably even have it cleaned a little bit. But so most of the time you can have it as soon as it's recorded, and that happens anywhere from, you know, I've seen it as early as 11 in the morning and often into close of business. So that's typically when agents will let you have access to the house. But if they really want to hold to the letter of the law, or if they have a reason to stay over, it's not technically yours until 9 o'clock. And it's written, let's see, where is that? Right here.
Now, that's something that I like to go over in the consultation is like, okay, so that if we do close on this date, we don't want to plan on moving in that day. Let's plan on moving in the following day, unless we specify otherwise.
Exactly. And one of the things when you're reading that boilerplate, which we'll get to, but we talked about all these appliances. And so let's say that we got mutual acceptance today and everything works. But then on May 18th, the refrigerator quits working. Who's responsible and what needs to happen? Do you guys have any idea?
I think it's the seller's responsibility.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Chloe?
Yeah, I would say sellers too. Just because I haven't taken possession.
Exactly. So you've got to turn the home over in like condition. And so buried down in here also is the buyer's right to do a walk on the home within 5 days of closing. And so oftentimes we'll get calls on our listings to schedule the walkthrough. It is the right of the buyer, and the buyer has the right to check the systems and make sure they operate as they did at time of purchase. If not, the seller has to make that right. And so, services of closing agent for payment of utilities. Do you guys know what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you? So this is a form called 22K, and they're saying that we're always like 99.99% time you're going to check this box. And what that's saying is that we are, as a buyer, requesting that the seller tell us who their utilities are paid to. And so you'll on that, it'll have like PUD. It's just a form. If you look up form 22K, it's probably one you've seen a million times. And it just has laid out who utilities are paid to. And so the buyer can move in when you get your new house, Chloe, you're able to go ahead and set up your cable and whatever other comforts you want. Maybe you want heat, so you might need to set up some electricity. It's a nice luxury. And then, you know, we always want to check this box too, prepaid in full by seller. And what this is, it says charges, assessments levied before, but not due after closing. And so they're saying that the seller is responsible to pay all the bills before it closes. And you're probably thinking, well, that's a no-brainer. I would never check the assumed by buyer. Why would I pay their bills? Once in a while, there are charges that do go on to the buyer. The most common one is what's called the sewer capacity charge. If you see it, I just want that to be a point of, oh yeah, Joe mentioned that, and you call me, you call Jason, and we can talk about that. It's not very often, so we don't want to go down that road, but it's not a big deal. In that case, you would check this box, but 99.9% of the time you're going to be checking prepaid in full by seller. All right, here is the tongue twister. Seller citizenship, Ferpta. So that's another form that gets attached down here in the addendas, and it says the seller is or is not a foreign person for purposes of U.S. income taxation. It's kind of a tongue twister. Actually, the form itself is more of a tongue twister, but you know, most of the time the buyers I'm working with are not a foreign person for the purpose of U.S. income taxation. And that came into play a while ago, this form. It's probably been 7 years, I'm guessing. And that was because a lot of people were selling overseas and not paying the capital gains or any of the taxes on it. And so it was kind of and so they put that in there. So basically, the agents could be liable if they did not fill this out and if the right taxes weren't paid. So that's what this form is for now. So you always want to check whether they're a foreign they're a foreign buyer for tax purposes or not. And then we got to let everybody know who represents anybody, because you want to get paid for your efforts. So I'm helping Chloe buy a house. I'm actually working as a dual agent. I'm also listing for Ashley. And so I'm going to check both. Now, typically, you know, if I'm filling this out, I'm representing a buyer. And so I'm the buyer broker. The seller is represented by the listing broker. So we want to delineate that, so we know who is responsible for what and what obligations that they have to make sure are fulfilled on their end. So that's the elements of the purchase and sale. That's the offer that we're going to put together. Now, there's a lot of other forms that go along with every offer. We've already talked about two. One is the Ferpta form and one is the 22K. Those are addendas we attach down here. So depending on how your person's buying and the condition of the market, and what we've decided, we'll have different variables, but most likely there's going to be a financing contingency. That's a very common one. And so these are all forms we'll go over in the future, but you know, it's important that whatever forms is going to be included with this offer, you call out right here. So they get attached to the purchase and sale. Let's look at some of the key elements, and I highlighted some as we go down here. Oh, wow, where's my highlight? Well, that is the weakest highlighter. Okay, so right here, we talked about the purchase price. Again, the buyer shall pay to the seller the purchase price, including the earnest money. So again, remember I talked about how it goes to in cash at closing, unless otherwise specified in this agreement, saying buyer represents that the buyer has sufficient funds to close the sale in accordance with this agreement and is not relying on any contingent sources of funds, including funds from loans, the sale, or other property, gifts, retired, blah, blah, blah. Before wiring funds, the party wiring funds shall take steps to confirm the wire instructions via independently verified phone number and other appropriate measures. So we can't warn our clients enough about wires. But again, it's right here. We're talking, so this would be a cash buyer. When we're gonna use financing, it says that we have to disclose that, and so that would be an addenda right here. That would be the financing addenda 22A. What's up, Jason, in your mask? All right, so earnest money. We talked about earnest money here. Again, it spells out that we went over this, but 2 days after closing if you don't put it. So if you forget to put a timeline in there, it's okay. Don't freak out. It's going to default to 2 days. You're throwing me off there, Jason, with your mask and your Jason Friday the 13th flannel. See, we got to have fun with it. See, contracts are fun. You missed the beginning. I said I was going to bring a party hat because everybody loves to talk about contracts. But it's the thing, you know, we just need to slow down and read sometimes if we get overwhelmed. And you know, it's so easy to pick up the phone and call people. But honestly, a lot of this stuff is spelled out if you read through it. And these contracts are supposed to be written in everyday language, easy to understand. So you don't have to have a law degree to understand it. You know, for me, though, I read fast and it doesn't sit. So if it's really important, I read it out loud and try to think about what it's actually saying. Let's see. Again, all the included items that we talked about, if it's not fixed to it and we haven't requested it, well, actually, if it isn't fixed to it and we have requested it, then that's actually considered personal property and might need to be on another addendum additionally. It says it's got to have free and clear title. It does come with insurance through escrow, which is great. But here we go. I wanted to talk about closing and possession. And so this is kind of what we talked about. But if you want to look at and figure out, hey, when do my sellers get the keys? Oh, I can highlight. Can I highlight? Oh, nice. Buyer shall be entitled to possession at 9 p.m. on possession date. So right there. So there's a couple of important elements here. We got some timelines that we have to know about. We got earnest money, 2 days, if not filled in. So these are important elements to this contract to know. And when we get down to computation of time, right here. Computation of time. And so this is important. It talks, this paragraph right here is really important. This is one that we all need to understand. I'm going to read it out loud and then we can talk about it. And it says, unless otherwise specified in this agreement, any period of time measured in days and stated in this agreement shall start on the following day. So Chloe, we got you into mutual acceptance this morning. So tomorrow is day one when we're talking about elements of time. And so when would you have to have your earnest money in?
Not tomorrow, not the next day, but the next day.
Okay. Well, here throws a problem. It's the weekend. And so we're under we're 5 days or less. So right here, any specified period of time, 5 days or less, except for any time period related to possession date, shall not include Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays. So we're talking business days. We're talking business days, not calendar days, because we're under 5 days. And so these are the things that we just, and this is where I would say there's more confusion is with computation of time on contracts than anything when it comes to delivering of earnest money. So the important rule of thumb to know is under five or less days is calendar days. It cannot end on a weekend or a holiday. And so on a 2-day computation of time on a Friday, it would start on Monday and end on Tuesday. So your earnest money would need to be in by close of business Tuesday. Close of business in that case, though, is close of the escrow company's business, not 9 o'clock. Again, as a buyer, you can't say, you know what? I don't want this house anymore, but I don't want to lose my earnest money. So I'm going to assign this to Jason. And, Jason has to meet all the qualifications on his own. So without written permission, you can't just assign it. So sometimes when you're working with investors, you'll have a contract that is open to assign because they don't know who they're going to place it with yet. Again, this is something we always talk about and we can't stress enough. Professional advice and attorney's fees. Buyer and seller are advised to seek the legal counsel of an attorney and a certified public accountant to review the terms of the agreement. Buyer and seller shall pay their own fees incurred for such review. However, if buyer and seller institute suit against the other concerning this agreement, or if the party holding the earnest money commences an interpleader action, the prevailing party is entitled to reasonable attorney's fees and expenses. So when it comes to talking about like surveys, all these things, if it's a rental property, you can give them some general guidance on these things, but when it gets into legal questions, you should refer them to seek legal counsel. We're not lawyers, we're not accountants, we're real estate agents. Some might think that they are, but they're not. So offer. And here we go again on that 9 o'clock. This offer must be accepted by 9 p.m. on the expiration date, unless sooner withdrawn. So Chloe, you've got this offer in. Ashley's not responding. She's dragging her feet. You found another house. You have the right, because they haven't responded, to rescind that offer. It's important to know. The information, property condition disclaimer, you'll see this waived a lot. Or paragraph W, information verification period. Basically, what this is stating that if us as agents put wrong information in the MLS and the buyer catches that in 10 days, they can back out of the purchase. So oftentimes you'll see this waived or crossed out. I've never seen anybody use that paragraph to get out of it, but I'm sure it's happened. Those are the basic elements of writing a contract, and the things that you really need to pay attention to is computation of time. Relax. I want to, remember to relax and just know that most of these answers are written out in plain English, easy, or plain terms, easy to understand. And so if you have questions, you will find most of the answers here. You can certainly call me and we'll go through them as well. but that's the elements of the contract. And so you're going to want to write a contract this far. You're going to need to know what they're putting down for earnest money. You're going to need to know when their desired close is, or when they can close with the lender. You're going to know the terms of what you're writing, so you know what addendums to attach. There's everything from septic addendums to financing addendums to low appraisal addendums to escalation addendums to, there's a lot of addendums, and we talk about them really quickly. But my hope is that we can now sit in them and take one at a time. But this is kind of this is where it all starts, is with the purchase and sale. So remember, if you're looking at a condo, if you're looking at a multi-family property, if you're looking at vacant land, they all have different purchase and sales, but all the elements are pretty much the same. What's the earnest money, the collateral, when's the time we're going to close, who's buying it, who are you buying it from, where's the property located, what's included in the sale, and then we'll get into the addendas. So do you guys have any questions?
No, I think it's great. I like how I'm not the only one that misses steps up here, because I've done that and I'm like, how did I do that? But you just really have to go line by line. Because a lot of times for me in the past, you're in a hurry to write an offer, right? So just take a time out, sit down, get your bearings right, and just go line by line, because it is so easy to miss, like, buyer brokerage firm, closing agent, and then what happens is you have to go back and forth at the end to get it initialed. And it's just kind of like,
over something silly. And the second you do it, it's so annoying. I mean, it's so annoying. And look at it, it's 16 lines.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard if you go line by line. And of those, the hardest part is because it auto populates for most of it. And so you got to remember to go and check. It's not going to check the boxes because the computer doesn't know who's holding the money. The computer doesn't know the closing date. The computer doesn't know who the listing broker is. And so we've got to make sure to check all those things.
Also, Chloe, I don't know if you knew this, but sorry, on the top, on the expiration date or the closing date, you can put like, okay, we're going to close on June 1st or sooner, which will save paperwork for the future. On the expiration date, a lot of the times, in this market, we'll put, okay, today's date by 6 o'clock. Otherwise it expires.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's a good tip there. Another thing to think about that comes up a lot is people are always like, who pays the taxes? Who pays this? Who pays that? It's all spelled out right here. Everything gets prorated at escrow. That's why we use escrow. They prorate all the costs of, taxes, things like that. And so, just really almost all your information is going to be right here that you need to know. Timelines, consequences, permission to use the electric signatures. And so,
otherwise you go to real estate jail.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
It's true. Let's read it. It's true. Let's say we don't check forfeiture of earnest money. What happens if we don't check that and we check seller's election of remedies for some weird reason? Seller may, at seller's option, keep the earnest money as liquidated damage as the sole and exclusive remedy available to the seller for such failure. They might bring suit against the buyer for seller's actual damages, bring suit to specifically enforce this agreement and recover any incidental damages or pursue any rights or remedies available at law of equity. We can avoid all of that by checking forfeiture of earnest money. The buck stops there.